Bongino just broke Rumble. he just broke it. It destroyed. Well, I don't know. I guess it was the heartfelt announcement that he is leaving his very popular podcast and live stream to go work for the not so popular FBI. I guess that's why everyone's like, no, Dan, don't do it. We all love you. We all love you, but now you're going to go work for the FBI. Don't you know it's one of the most hated organizations in the world? Yes, and I think that's why he's going to go. I think that's why he's going to go try to fix it. What's up? This is Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and we welcome, I guess, people who usually watch us on Rumble. Hopefully you found us on YouTube or X or Facebook or one of the multiple other platforms that we stream to every single day. And if you're listening online via the podcast, hey, great. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe. Very important that you hit the subscribe button and you say, hey, I want more of this stuff, iTunes. I want this every single day, Spotify. I want every single moment of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, wherever and whenever I can get it. And if you're watching on YouTube, like I said, or any of those other channels, by all means, make sure you subscribe and set the notifications too. Because you never know. First of all, I never know when I'm going to get a wild hair. That sounds weird. Wild hair and just start recording content and throwing it up there. So if I don't know, there's no possible way you could know. But if you set the notifications, then everyone will know. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to get notified when I go live. So there's a lot of big news today. There's so much big news. It's really, I think it was Cat Turd who wrote something along the lines of, hey, just when you thought you were posting breaking news on X about Donald Trump, there's more breaking news on X about Donald Trump. And it's true. Every 5 or 6 minutes, I think there goes some more. By the time this show's over, there's going to be 9 more. There's going to be 9 more breaking news stories that Donald Trump has done. Whether it's, and it's not always necessarily Donald Trump, although it really pretty much in some way, shape, or form, every news story relates back to Donald Trump. For example, the story about Joy Reid getting fired from MSNBC. I know, it's very exciting. That story is not directly related to Donald Trump, but that story is also directly related to President Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I'm not saying he got Joy Reid fired, but I'm pretty much saying Donald Trump got Joy Reid fired.
The poop toilet is full.
And yes, her ridiculous racist rants and her unhinged behavior and her lies and her propaganda and her just stupidity, that probably had a lot to do with it. But the problem is there was a market for that until Donald Trump came back and pointed out to everybody that common sense rules the day. And that the kind of stuff that MSNBC and Joy Reid were spewing is just ridiculous.
The poop toilet is full.
Pardon me, ridiculous. Let me take a swig of water. I had some nuts before the show. I shouldn't have eaten the nuts, but I threw some nuts in my mouth before the show because I figured, get a little protein, get a little energy. I haven't eaten all day yet, so I was like, okay, I'll break the fast right before showtime, and I'll put some nuts in my mouth and swallow them. And then now they're stuck in my throat, so I gotta drink a little water. But yeah, Joy Reid was fired. Donald Trump was thrilled, by the way. We all were, but really Donald Trump was having a field day with the news that Joy Reid was fired. He had a field day with a lot of things this weekend. The first thing that Donald Trump did, gosh, was it only Friday? It seems like it was so long ago. It was only on Friday. There were a couple of really interesting things that happened with President Donald Trump. And then we'll get to Dan Bongino here in just a minute, because like I said, he did have a very heartfelt, very heartfelt goodbye. And he's going to be around till like mid-March. I think he's got like a couple weeks before, because, you got to give your 2 weeks notice, and he's got a big radio show, all that kind of stuff. So I think he's going to be around for a little bit longer. But then what's going to happen is, supposedly, he's then going to leave and go work at the FBI with Kash Patel as deputy FBI director. So like I said, we'll get to all that in due time. But one of the other things that happened, and I'm trying to see if I don't know if I still have it. No, I may have deleted it. But on Friday, Donald Trump did a couple things. First of all, he yelled at the governor of Maine to her face, which was fantastic. I'm always here for that. I'm always here for Donald Trump yelling to the governor of Maine to her face. And it was just as glorious to watch as, I watched it multiple times. In fact, I did an entire video on it if you want to go check it out. But then he did something else with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he hired a guy to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff named Dan Raisin Kane. And that's Raisin's a nickname. Raisin's a nickname. Although Donald Trump a couple times, he's told this story. It's a really great story. And if you listen to the 47 Daily rather this morning, you know all about it. And you heard all about the story of Raisin Cain. But Raisin Cain, the first time I ever heard this story, I was at TPUSA in, where was it? In Tampa. There was a big event and Donald Trump came out to speak. And I went to go hear Donald Trump speak. And I was sitting in the background. And all of a sudden he started telling this story about Iraq and ISIS. And here's the thing about Iraq and ISIS. ISIS and Iraq were there for a very long time. And we weren't really sure why no one was getting rid of them. We weren't really sure why, the people in charge weren't just destroying ISIS, which they could totally do. But what happened was Donald Trump said, look, you know what? I'm going to go there. And you may remember it was a big story. He went and he planned like this surprise trip. It was a surprise trip to Iraq. And he showed up at this base. Nobody knew he was coming. And when he got there, he met with all the troops and he broke bread with them and they were all excited and they all chanted USA, USA. And it was really fantastic. But something else that happened was he was talking to one of his generals, a guy by the name of Raisin Cain. And he said to Raisin Cain, he goes, hey, let me ask you a question. Why is it that we haven't taken out ISIS yet? How long is that going to take? And this guy, Raisin Cain, says, sir, I could do it in a week. And Donald Trump looks at him and goes, a week? They've been telling me 2 years. And Raisin Cain says, yes, sir, we could do it in a week. And Donald Trump says, how do you do it in a week? He goes, well, if we were able to hit them on all sides at one time, we could take them out for good. We could come in the front. We could come in the back. We could come from this base. We could come from that base. We could obliterate them. It would take about a week. And ISIS would cease to exist. And Donald Trump said, wait a minute, how come all the other generals, I asked the other generals, they tell me 2 years. Did you ever tell the other generals your plan? And he goes, no, sir, that's not my place. My place is to execute the plan that the generals, they fly in from Washington, they come in here, they tell us what to do, and we do it. And Donald Trump says, well, how come you're telling me? And Raisin Cain says, because you asked. He goes, the other generals, no other general has ever asked the troops on the ground, the men on the ground, how do we take out the target? No other generals flew into Iraq and said, hey, you guys have been here for a while. You guys are familiar with the enemy. What's the best course of action to obliterate these people? Until Raisin Cain came around. And so Donald Trump was like, look, you're my guy. And now Raisin Cain is in charge of, well, basically everything. President Donald Trump wrote, today I am honored to announce that I am nominating Air Force Lieutenant General Dan Raisin Cain to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Cain is an accomplished pilot, national security expert, successful entrepreneur, and a warfighter with significant interagency and special operations experience. During my first term, Raisin was instrumental in the complete annihilation of the ISIS caliphate. It was done in record-setting time, a matter of weeks. Many so-called military geniuses said it would take 2 years to defeat ISIS. General Cain, on the other hand, said it could be done quickly, and he delivered. So General Cain then he goes into Sleepy Joe Biden and how he passed him over for promotion. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So General Raisin Cain is the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and along with Pete Hegseth and everyone else who's in charge, it's going to be they're going to do a fantastic job. And I imagine one of the big tasks that he's going to task him with is saying, hey, remember when you took out ISIS the first time in a week? We're going to need you to do that again. I imagine that's going to be one of the top items on Raisin Cain's list. But the big news, of course, was Dan Bongino getting selected by President Donald Trump and Kash Patel. Really, I guess it was Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and then they came to President Donald Trump. And then when they said, hey, President Trump, we need Dan Bongino, that's when the whole thing went down. But so Kash Patel got nominated, and then he got confirmed, and it was a tight vote, 51 to 49. And Mitch McConnell voted in favor. You know the whole thing. So Kash Patel takes charge of the FBI. And he goes in, all right, I'm going to need a deputy. And one of the names on his short list, probably the only name on his short list, was Dan Bongino. And Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino's the guy that has the #1 podcast in the world. He's got the #1 live stream in the world. He's got a radio show that reaches pretty much every corner of the globe. He worked for Obama's Secret Service. He worked on Obama's Secret Service detail. He was one of the guys, and I know this is the craziest thing when you think about how conservative Dan Bongino is. He's one of the guys that was supposed to jump in front of the bullet should anybody ever try to shoot at Barack Obama. And he would have done it. I mean, again, he knows what service is. He knows what duty is. He knows all that kind of stuff. He was a police officer in New York City. Tough guy, really tough guy. And so, we were hearing rumblings that he might be tapped to be the new head of the U.S. Secret Service. We heard that rumor a lot, but that didn't happen. He got passed over for that. And then Kash Patel became the director of the FBI. And Kash Patel said, look, I really want Dan Bongino. And he reached out to Dan Bongino, and he talked with Dan Bongino, and he talked to Pam Bondi, and the president of the United States reached out to Dan Bongino. And last night, I guess sometime in the evening, while Dan Bongino was watching TV, they had another conversation. He had another conversation with the president, and they made it official.
I was home last night, and I'm sitting there. I was watching a show. I didn't even know what I was watching. Food That Built America or something like that. And I was falling asleep.
By the way, I don't know how you fall asleep during Food That Built America. That's an amazing show. I remember watching the Pepperidge Farm Wonder Bread episode. And then there was another one about, it was Blimpie versus Subway. I love that. I love the Food That Built America. That's a fantastic show. Anyway, let me get back to Dan.
As it had been a really long day, now you know why, and some of you kind of understand why the show had a different tone over the last couple of weeks. And I got a call from the president, and it couldn't have been nicer. And I obviously keep the contents of it between us, but I think you get the gist about what it was about. And kind of broke down a bit because it was, this is now real. So President, Attorney General Bondi, and now Director, gosh, that sounds good to say, FBI Director Kash Patel offered this role, a role I expressed an interest in. And ladies and gentlemen, I told you, you see, it's hard for me. I'm going to accept the role proudly as the deputy director, the number 2 spot at the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, so Dan Bongino says, I'm proudly accepting the role of deputy director of the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, number 2 guy, which is it's a fantastic role. And in a lot of ways, the number 2 guy does a lot more when it comes to, changing the scope and changing the face and, all the inner workings of the FBI. Kash Patel is a big picture guy. He's a visionary guy. He knows who the enemies are. He knows what needs to be changed. Dan Bongino is going to go in and he's going to start walking in offices and go, what the hell's going on in here? Get your crap and get out. I know you've been leaking to the press. Get out of here, you bum. It's going to be exciting to watch. But and again, of course, if anything should happen to Kash Patel, he's no longer able to execute his duties. Dan Bongino then becomes the acting director of the FBI, and there's no one that is more fit for that particular job. So again, it's the whole Trump JD Vance idea. When you're in charge of something really important like the United States of America or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, you need somebody who's ready, willing, and able to jump into your shoes should something happen. And the way that Donald Trump has JD Vance, Kash Patel now has Dan Bongino. And as you can tell by Dan Bongino's emotional reaction, it's emotional for him, but it's a duty that he accepts.
Folks, it's a lot to walk away from. I will tell you everything what happened within reason. And then I got a show to do, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with the show. So it's going to be a pretty wild ride today. Man, do we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to play for you in the beginning, too, a speech I gave that someone sent to me from 11 years ago. And you'll see why I decided to make this decision. So a lot to do today. Thank you so much for kind of a big audience here right away. out of the chute. So
yeah, such a big audience that the rest of us can't even get on the platform. I'm serious. Like I went to go, and again, I'm not complaining. Like Dan's, let Dan have his big day. But I go on to Rumble because, Dan's got he's got production staff. He's got producers. I've got me, and I go on and I'm typing in and I'm trying to set up the recording or set up the broadcast, and I'm having trouble with that, and it posts, but then it disappears, and then it deletes, and then it comes back, and then I'm like, I'm not getting the information I need. So I log out like an idiot, and then I go to try to log back in, and it's like, we're sorry, this user doesn't exist. And I was like, whoa, what did I do? I just got deleted from Rumble. I got deleted from the entire platform. So then I tried again. Then I tried changing my password. Then I just wrote to the vice president of Rumble because I happen to know the guy. I go, hey, you guys having some issues? Did Dan break it? And he goes, hang on, let me check. And he comes back. He's like, oh yeah, we're having some issues. And again, I imagine a lot of people tuning in for Dan Bongino's big announcement. So, well, hopefully they'll work it all out and we'll get back on the platform. I don't know, sometime. In the meantime, though, what Dan Bongino is saying is really accurate.
Thank you very much. I love you guys. And Bongino Army out there, I hope you understand. I got a couple of negative comments. Dan, you should have let us know. I hope you understand about this. This is not you do not ever get ahead of the President of the United States, the Attorney General, and the Director of the FBI. You don't do that. Not when you take positions like that. It's not the right thing to do. So now you understand.
By the way, who are these people complaining you should have let us know? The President of the United States is talking with you secretly and privately about a high-level position that is a national security position. I mean, domestic and international. And you're like, you should have let us know because I watch you on my phone? Nice try, whoever that. Nice try, dude. I think the president, the president, the attorney general, the director of the FBI, yeah, if they tell you, hey, don't tell anybody about this, don't talk about this on your show, you're going to not tell anybody and you're going to not talk about it on your show. I would imagine. I know I wouldn't. You know what? Maybe I would. And that's probably why they haven't come calling. Anyway, listen, that's why my phone never rings. Now I get it because I got a big fat mouth. But look, it is the honor of a lifetime, I'm sure. And it's something that you just don't say no to. People are like, Dan Bongino is giving everything up. And it's a lot. It's a lot. He's like I said, he's got hundreds of radio stations. He's going to have to stop doing his radio show. He's got the largest live stream in the world. More people watch him on live stream than anyone else, much to my chagrin. And that he's going to give that up. And then, God knows how much money in sponsorship dollars alone. I mean, sponsorships are they're a big part of what we do here. We have sponsors. He's got sponsors. He's got more sponsors. Probably they pay him more. But there's a lot of opportunity for advertising and sponsorships and that kind of thing. And when you walk away from this live stream, you're walking away from really not just the audience and not just the feeling and the emotion and this. I mean, look, you also have built up not just a fan base, but kind of a persona. Doing this every single day. When there's a day that goes by and you don't do it, whether it's a weekend or you're sick or on your vacation, it's odd. This is who we become. And if we're not sitting in front of a camera, yelling into a microphone about, the stupid Democrats or liberal scum or whatever it is, then, you just feel weird. You don't feel like yourself. You just feel kind of off and you're like, I just can't wait to that's why I love Mondays so much. I love Mondays because I'm like, great, I get to go back and yell into the microphone and scream and go, stupid liberals and all that other good stuff. That's the essence of my being. And it's got to be something that's difficult really to walk away from for him. The other thing that's scary is, sure, you're like, it's temporary. It's 4 years. Okay, sure. 4 years. A lot can happen in 4 years. And you don't know 4 years later when you come back and you say, hey guys, I'm back. I'd like to do this thing again. You don't know that the people are going to be there. You don't know that they're going to be like, well, we found something else. I mean, when I got fired from the radio about a year ago, there are people that immediately, found me or waited for me or came back. There's people that are watching this show right now, not on Rumble because they're not working, but everywhere else. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad I found you and I'm so glad you're back. Thank God. But there's other people that, I disappeared and they have no idea where I am and they moved on with their life. They found someplace else to go. And so it is a chance that you take. that the life that you've built and the career that you've built and the show that you've built and the fan base that you've built and the community that you've built and the business that you've built could be harmed irreparably by this decision. But when the president calls you and the attorney general call you and the director of the FBI call you and say, you're the guy we need to do this job for the next 4 years, you're the guy we need to come in and make sure that this agency is de-weaponized, to make sure that the leaks are gone, to make sure that the bad apples are gone, to reestablish the dignity and the investigative, DNA of this organization. We need you to toughen these people up and rid us of these woke, disgusting, traitorous, deep state operatives. You know who they are, you know where they are, you know how to get rid of them. And then when we bring in new people, because this is the really important thing. When you bring in new people, you have to train them properly from the get-go. You have to say, okay, new people, here's how we do things. And you need to really drill it in. All that good stuff from way back when, we always joke about the Full Metal Jacket, and I try not to quote, all the two things come from Texas. I try not to quote it too much, but when you look at those kinds of movies, the reason our fighting forces were so tough and our military men and women were so resilient to anything is because they call them drill sergeants for a reason. You got to drill into these people how the military works. Respect for the flag, respect for your superiors, respect for yourself, respect for your country. You've got to make sure that they know. They're dead set on who's the enemy and who's the ally. And what do we do to the enemy and what do we do to our allies? And at the FBI, that line has been really jaded. I mean, it's a blurred line, as what's his name would say, thick. But basically what happens is they said, okay, it used to be our enemies were criminals. The FBI, the enemies were criminals. Drug dealers, kidnappers, bank robbers, terrorists, all those people. We were going after the murderers. We were going after the worst people in the world. That's what the FBI did. Nowadays, they think that the bad guys are parents at PTA meetings or Catholics at church or Donald Trump, former president, or political adversaries. They think that Melania Trump's underwear drawer held national security secrets, and they burst into her home, walked right into her bedroom and rifled through it like she was some kind of common criminal. That's what the FBI did. The FBI turned against the real enemy and turned real Americans into their enemy. And Dan Bongino's job now is to go back and make sure that doesn't happen. Root out the bad apples, bring in good apples, shine them up, and make sure they're clear on the mission. They're clear on what the mission of the FBI is. They're clear on who the evil people are and who the good people are. They're clear on who they should be investigating and who they shouldn't be. That's the role that Dan Bongino is taking on. And it's very, very exciting to see. Also, this was kind of interesting because I just learned about this earlier. There's another guy who I've interviewed a couple times, and his name's Graham Allen. You may know Graham Allen. He's another podcaster, and he's gone to the Pentagon. And I couldn't even figure out what role he's going to be. But look at this. Graham Allen posted on X, as stated on the show this morning, I've been asked by POTUS and SecDef to serve my country again. When you get the call to serve your country, you answer it. The American people voted for demanded change agents. They will get it. And now he has an official DOD account. And I went on his official DOD account. And again, I still can't figure out what he's doing. But apparently he's now working for the Defense Department again at the Pentagon with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. So congratulations to Graham Allen. I'm going to tell you, Rumble's got to fix their stuff because they're like, with Bongino gone and Graham Allen gone, they're not going to have anyone left to broadcast unless they can get us signed back into our accounts. So it's really kind of interesting. And you know what? This is exciting to me too, because I've always said that there's podcasters and people that do this, people that study this for a living. We know the truth. We know what's effective. We know, you and I and everybody who talks about these things for hours every single day. I mean, we're studying the United States of America. We're studying the government. You can't do what we do and not know or think that you've uncovered more truth than most people. And the fact that Donald Trump keeps pulling from the same pool investigative journalists and podcasters and people who have, worked in the system before and now are returning. I think it's fantastic. I think it's really great that they're bringing in these people who know how to communicate, who've given this a lot of thought, who have experience in this kind of industry, whether it's the DOD or the FBI or the Secret Service. And I think that, even from Pete Hegseth on down, remember, Pete Hegseth was a Fox News host, but he also knows a lot about the military. He's also written books about the military, and now he's in charge of the military. And as far as I can tell, doing a really stellar job. Anyway, we'll get more on Dan Bongino as we get it. Again, he's on the air till March something or other is what I thought I heard him say. And I'll tell you the funny. It was funny talking to people about all the Dan Bongino stories because I met him for the very first time at the RNC in Milwaukee, and it was my favorite because Mike Gallagher was like in the booth right next to me. We were on, there's like an aisleway and there's two booths. There's me, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, Mike Gallagher show. We're right next to each other. And then right across the hallway, and by hallway, I mean the 6-foot piece of carpet, I sit down and it says the Dan Bongino show. And I go, oh, I got Dan Bongino here. I got Mike Gallagher here. This is going to be fun. And then I realized that we were all basically broadcasting at the same time and we're the three loudest people in the entire place. So as soon as noon hits, Dan Bongino's screaming into his microphone, rah, 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 rah. And Mike Gallagher's over there going, brr, 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 brr. And then I'm over here going, rah, 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 rah. And it's a cacophony of just, loud, bald guys. Mike Gallagher has a little bit of hair, but Dan Bongino and I forget about it. And we're just, I get a text message from somebody and they go, oh my God, I just heard you on Dan Bongino's show. And I said, I wasn't on Dan Bongino's show. They said, no, I heard you yelling so loud that you're coming through Dan Bongino's microphone. And I go, oh, I guess so. And I guess Dan Bongino wasn't a big fan of that because he actually had two studios. He had the one studio right across from me, which was all set up very nicely. He had a big leather chair, I remember, on wheels, and he had his little setup. And then the Rumble people had a studio. They had a big, they took over like a whole wing upstairs. And he had a little studio space in there as well to do his broadcast. So after the first day, he comes back down and these guys come in. They start like packing up Dan Bongino's microphones and they're packing up Dan Bongino's sign and they're packing up Dan Bongino's snacks and stuff. And then Dan Bongino walks in. I go, hey. He's like, hey, what's up, Mark? I go, where are you go? Are you not coming back? He goes, it's too loud down here. It's too crowded. I'm going up to Rumble. They got like a space up there. You know what? I did this one day. It's fine. I'm going to broadcast upstairs for the rest of the time. And I go, okay, cool. And I look over at his broadcast studio, which they're starting to dismantle. And I go, hey, can I have your chair? And he looks at the chair and he looks at me. He goes, Mark, you can have whatever the filth foul you want. And I was like, great. So I ran over and I got Dan Bongino's big leather chair and I wheeled it over to my little section, and it was great. It was the most comfortable chair, and I had I had a fantastic time the rest of the week sitting in Dan Bongino's chair. But anyway, he's a great guy, and I look forward. Hopefully we'll see him again. I imagine we'll see him again at the next convention. But really great guy, and we wish him all the best for sure. And we know that he's going to do a great job. And you may not hear him as much, and you may not see him as much, but know that he'll be working to make sure all of us are safer and that our country is great again. So we're very, very excited. We're very excited about that. All right, Lee, there is more. There's other stuff we got to talk about for sure. Donald Trump was at CPAC over the weekend. Donald Trump was at CPAC. Did I mention Joy Reid?
The poop toilet is full.
I think I did. Joy Reid got fired. No, I have to go back. It's weird. It's one of those weird days because I had a whole list of things I wanted to talk about in a particular order, but then I think I just blew that right out of the water and just started talking about all kinds of stuff. But Joy Reid from MSNBC got fired. And I think Donald Trump also posted about her, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go back here and see. Donald Trump also, and Donald Trump only posts when people he likes get hired for some job or when people he hates get fired from some job. And Joy Reid, he did a great job really summarizing Joy Reid's history of horribleness. Let me go see if I can find it here. Great news. Here's the Dan Bongino. But anyway, Donald Trump went on this weekend, and he was just like, look, Joy, this happened on the weekend too. It was a very busy Sunday. For some reason, on a Sunday, Joy Reid got fired, and then Dan Bongino got hired. And it's really kind of an interesting thing when you look at it. It's an interesting dichotomy, because usually it used to be that the weekends were quiet time. It used to be that the weekends, nothing really happened. Nothing of importance really happened. But now what we're starting to see is that there is no such thing as a Saturday or a Sunday. Every day is a work day. Every day there is something that has to get done. Every day there's something that has to be completed. And here it is. Donald Trump on his True Social account. Low-life chairman of Comcast. Donald Trump's got jokes. I'll give him that. I'll play you the jokes from CPAC here in just a minute. Low-life chairman of Comcast, Brian Roberts, the owner of ratings-challenged NBC and MSDNC, has finally gotten the nerve up to fire one of the least talented people in television, the mentally obnoxious racist, Joy Reid. Mentally obnoxious. That's a great description of someone, because I've heard mentally unstable, mentally deranged. I've heard obnoxious, but I've never actually heard anyone use those two words together and describe someone as mentally obnoxious. But it's a really solid description of Joy Reid. The mentally obnoxious racist Joy Reid. Based on her ratings, which were virtually non-existent, she should have been canned long ago, along with everyone else who works there. Also thrown out was Alex Wagner, the sub on the seriously failing Rachel Maddow show. Rachel rarely shows up because she knows there's nobody watching, and she also knows that she's got less television persona than virtually anyone on television except perhaps Joy Reid. And then, of course, the low IQ con man Al Sharpton, who has perhaps the lowest TV ratings in the history of television. What is he doing to Brian Roberts to stay on the air? I mean, that's a great... Notice he didn't say, what's he doing for? What is he doing, period? What is he doing to Brian Roberts to stay on the air? This whole corrupt operation is nothing more than an illegal arm of the Democrat Party. They should be forced to pay vast sums of money for the damage they've done to our country. Fake news is an unpardonable sin. Unpardonable sin is how Donald Trump describes it. And now Joy Reid, she's gonna be paying, I guess, reparations. What?
The poop toilet is full.
By the way, that clip that's one of my favorite Joy Reid moments, because it's Joy Reid on MSNBC with Michael Steele, who used to be a Republican but now is just a big never Trumper, and they're discussing the GOP. The whole clip is just ridiculous. They're talking about the GOP like it's a big toilet, and people are throwing poop into it, and it's overflowing. It's really graphic and disgusting. But that was the news on MSNBC. That's what the news was. And Joy Reid jumps up and says, yeah, the poop toilet is full.
The poop toilet is full.
And they thought that was brilliant commentary. They thought that that's what people wanted to hear. They thought that's the kind of commentary that is going to inform our viewers. And that's the kind of lowbrow stuff that we want and need to keep our audience entertained. It's kind of sad, but it's true. And now they realize the audience isn't even entertained by that anymore. Look, most people in this country don't like Joy Reid. They don't like Rachel Maddow. They don't like MSNBC. They don't like the Democrat Party. Most people in this country like Donald Trump. They like conservatism. They like constitutionalism. They like patriotism. They like putting America first. They like closing the border. They like ending the war in Ukraine. They like keeping the money here at home. They like cutting taxes. They like bringing down inflation. They like deporting illegal immigrants. In fact, there's this look at this. This just came out. This is where is this from? This is I don't know where this is from, but it's a poll. Oh, the percentage of support by political parties, support and opposition for different policies. Basically what this shows is that the majority of people approve of Donald Trump's policies. Deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have committed crimes. Support, 81%. Oppose, 19%. Democrats, 70% of Democrats supported getting rid of illegal immigrants. Think about that. 70% of Democrats support Donald Trump's position of getting rid of people who are here illegally and have committed crimes. Undertaking a full-scale effort to find and eliminate fraud, and waste in government expenditures. You'll hear all these people complaining about Doge and Elon and how he's cutting too many jobs and he's firing people and yada, 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 and the USAID, blah, 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 blah. 76% of Americans support that. 62% of Democrats. So a vast majority of Americans and a large majority of Democrats agree. Closing the border with added security and policies that discourage Oh, hold on. Can you guys hear me? So closing point. So 61%, 92% of the GOP, by the way, 92% of the GOP, they say we support closing the border with added security. I don't know who the 8% is that doesn't support it. Maybe they just weren't home. Anyway, next one, banning men who have undergone operations and hormones to become women from girls' sports. 69% of America agrees. 50% of Democrats. I'm shocked it's that high. I thought the Democrat Party, and again, this shows you how the media just twists and turns everything. I thought the majority of Democrats were all about boys and girls sports. I thought if you found a Democrat anywhere, you could go and you could be like, hey, you know what? If boys want to play in women's sports, we're all about it. Only 50% of the party. Declaring that there are only two genders, male and female, in all government forms and programs. 68% of America agrees with that. Eliminating all preferences by race in the hiring and awarding of government contracts. 65% agree. Freezing and reevaluating all foreign aid expenditures in the department that handled them. 63%. Placing reciprocal tariffs on countries that have tariffs on U.S. goods. 61%. Now, only 36% of Democrats agree with the idea of reciprocal tariffs. That's interesting to me. Why is it that 36% of Democrats agree with reciprocal tariffs, which means that, if I can do that, 64% don't? The majority of Democrats don't agree with reciprocal tariffs, which is weird because they're the party. They're the party. They've always been the party. They've always been the party that has said we need to spread the wealth around. They've always been the party that said everybody needs to pay their fair share. When it comes to taxes, they wanted to tax the rich higher than the poor. When it comes to taxes, they want to take all the money from the evil millionaires and billionaires. Why is it then that they don't want China or Mexico or Canada or Europe or any other country to pay their fair share? If the United States is paying a 25% tariff on goods going into another country, then we should be charging a 25% tariff on goods coming out of that country. That's their fair. That's only fair. It's really weird and bizarre how these Democrats are so hypocritical. Cutting government expenditures that were already allocated by Congress, 59%. Ending bans on offshore drilling in Alaska and elsewhere, 57%. This is the fun one. Renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Only 39% of Americans, 39% support that. 63% of Republicans support it. Only 21% of Democrats. So everything that Donald Trump has done so far has been ridiculously popular with the majority of Americans, except, of course, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I'm not really sure why. I'll be honest with you, everybody that's visited the Mark Kaye shop so far, everyone that's visited the Mark Kaye shop so far and purchased their Gulf of America gear has loved the renaming of the Gulf of America. And if you have not yet purchased your Gulf of America gear, it's really easy to find. All you have to do is go to markkshop.com. You can find the t-shirts, you can find the hoodies, you can find the 40-ounce travel tumblers. We've been getting posts and emails and photos from people that have been getting their orders and receiving them and loving them, and they look so good. High quality t-shirts. The 40-ounce tumbler, by the way, I keep forgetting how big a 40-ounce tumbler is. It's literally the size of somebody's head. I mean, if you remember the 40 ounces, like the Mad Dog, no, not the Mad Dog. What is the Old English 8-ball? A 40 ounce, that's a big thing. And these 40-ounce tumblers are huge. They say Gulf of America on one side. They say Mark Saves the Republic on the other. And they're very popular. If you want a hoodie, I do light and dark mode on everything, because I know there's light mode people and dark mode. The dark mode has the red, white, and blue Gulf of America, which is very, very exciting and very, very stylish, and people love it. If you go for the light mode, it's the blue, white, and red. Basically, it's very similar, but slightly different. And all of these they're made to order. You can order them from anywhere. Look, Stacy just purchased a t-shirt. Go to markkshop.com, markkshop.com, to get your official Gulf of America. Even though, according to this new poll, only 39% of Americans approve of the Gulf of America being changed, which, by the way, I mean, that's still a lot. Look, if it's, let's see, there's 330, million? 1, 2, 3, yeah, times, 34% point, or 39%? That's still like 12 million. No, that's 128 million people that could buy a hoodie. So even if just 1% of those people bought a hoodie, that would still be 1.2 million hoodies. So or t-shirts or mugs or whatever it is. So definitely swing by the Mark K shop and get yourself a hoodie. All right, back to Donald Trump at CPAC. Donald Trump at CPAC, he was talking about all kinds of stuff, man. It was almost like a stand-up comedy routine, but really he was just talking about government waste. In fact, there was a portion of the program where he talked about Social Security. And all Donald Trump was doing, was he was going over the Social Security rolls. You know, and we've shared it. I've talked about it. You've seen it here. I read through it last week. These are the people who are collecting Social Security and their current ages. And it's fascinating how many people who are an age that is biologically impossible to achieve are still getting Social Security checks. And that's one of the big things that Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Doge are trying to cut away. And Donald Trump gets up there and he does the same thing. He just starts talking about the Social Security, the people's ages, and the crowd is roaring with laughter. It's not funny, but the way but his delivery is funny. He's just reading the Social Security rolls and people think it's a joke.
1.3 million people, 1.3 who are over 150 years of age. And over 130,000 people are listed on our Social Security rolls as over 160 years of age. Now, the final is at 1,039. So now we're down into reasonable numbers. 1,039 people are listed between the ages of 220 years old to 229. And we have one person who's listed at 241 years of age. And we have one person listed at 360 years of age, an all-time record, and our country's 250 years old. So that person's substantially older than our country.
I mean, look at that. And people are just laughing like, it's not I mean, it's not funny, but it's also true. That's what's happening with what's happening with our Social Security system. That's the waste that Doge is trying to cut out. That's what Elon Musk is trying to do. He's trying to say, this is wrong. These people are criminals. This is waste. This is fraud. This is abuse. And for whatever reason, there's a lot of people that don't think that waste, fraud, and abuse should be dealt with in this manner. They think that waste, fraud, and abuse should just be put up with because we're America and we can handle it. Donald Trump says, with the tariffs, he goes, look, I love tariffs. There's people out there, and we saw them. There's people out there, the Democrats, that don't believe that tariffs are a good thing. And they yell at him. The fake news media yells at him when he says tariff is my favorite word. So he doesn't say it anymore.
And I get myself in trouble because I say that tariff is my favorite word, and the fake news went crazy. What about God? What about wife and family? What about love? I said, okay, Tariff is now my fourth favorite word. I got myself into a lot of trouble with that. You can't believe it. I said, tariff is my favorite word in the dictionary, and I got killed by the fake news. So I say now, it doesn't sound good. Tariff, it's my fourth favorite word. I go, tariff is my fourth favorite word. It sounds so terrible, but this way I'm free. I write free, you know. I don't get clobbered by the fake news.
Well, not for that, at least. I'm sure he'll get clobbered by the fake news for something else. But he said, look, we're draining the swamp. That's what you sent us here to do. That's what I'm doing.
The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people. For years, Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer.
Not any longer, because he's getting rid of all of them. He's getting rid of all the people who are still in the bureaucracy, and he's keeping the evildoers from ever coming back into our bureaucracy. And he talked about that as well when he talked about getting rid of security clearances for Joe Biden and his generals and his captains.
What a bunch of losers. I revoked the security clearances of Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, John Brennan, James Clapper, and every non-patriot who lied to cover up Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. We took away their security clearances. And they're not allowed to enter any government building either. I also revoked Joe Biden's security clearances, the Biden crime family security clearances, and they'll no longer be allowed to access state secrets while selling themselves all around the world. Oh, well. Now, these are bad people.
Bad people. Bad, horrible people. And Joe Biden can't sell those state secrets anymore because his security clearance has been revoked. He will no longer be able to access any or all security information that he had access to before. And that's, that's all good stuff. That's all really, 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 really good stuff. As far as Doge goes, I mean, oh, there's one thing that Donald Trump did, which made me laugh out loud. Because, there's a lot of different ways that you can handle government waste. Some of them include shutting down entire agencies that are corrupt, like the USAID, which was just funneling money to various different special interests and Democrats and other organizations and creating the most ridiculous things imaginable. It was basically a slush fund using your tax dollars for woke concepts and woke projects around the globe. And Donald Trump said, we're just going to shut that whole thing down. There's no need for that whatsoever. Then you could go into all these other agencies like the Department of Education or the Department of Defense or the IRS, all these places that they're sending Doge into to try and figure out where the waste is, where the fraud is, where the abuse is, and get rid of it. And then you could, sell off assets and sell off things that maybe it doesn't make sense for the government to own anymore. Especially, think about this, if you start firing people, you're not going to need as much office space as you used to have. So you could sell it, or you could rent it out, or both. You could sell your office and rent back space if you need it, if you need less space than you did before. And that's exactly what Donald Trump is proposing to do with a very famous landmark in San Francisco.
White House is looking to sell the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building on 7th Street and the century-old building at 50 United Nations Plaza. The Trump administration says it will save money by avoiding maintenance on the buildings, selling the properties, then leasing office space for federal workers. Former Congresswoman Jackie Spears says it's just about vengeance.
It's another example of how he's coming after Democrats, he's coming after California, and it's all about payback.
Payback. It's all about payback. Selling the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building is all about payback. First of all, why is there a Nancy Pelosi Federal Building? Who decided to name the Nancy Pelosi Building the Nancy Pelosi Building? I mean, first, and also, look at it. This is the weirdest looking building
White
I've
House
ever seen.
is looking to sell the Nancy Pelosi Federal
Look at
Building
this.
on
It's-
7th Street. And
It's got like some weird modern architecture, or it's got holes. Who knows? The maintenance is way too expensive, which I totally believe, because have you seen Nancy Pelosi? I imagine the maintenance on Nancy Pelosi is also very expensive. You don't get those eyebrows to stay up like that at her age without some really expensive maintenance. So I would have to. But look, Nancy Pelosi, she does not deserve to have a building named after her. She's not done one thing in her 80 years in Congress that is memorable or that requires the kind of, I guess you would say, immortality that comes with having a building named after you. All I can remember Nancy Pelosi doing is trying to impeach Donald Trump twice with no proof, and tearing up the State of the Union address behind Donald Trump when she was Speaker of the House. That's it. And I had people like, well, she was the first female Speaker of the House. Doesn't mean she was a good one. Just because you're the first female Speaker of the House doesn't mean you deserve accolades. She was a horrible Speaker of the House. She wielded her power and authority. She threatened her own caucus. She would have Democrats primaried if they didn't bend to her will. It was really, she was you want to talk about dictators. You want to compare Putin to Zelensky, compare them to Nancy Pelosi. And you'll see exactly who the dictator was, and probably still is to this day. But Donald Trump said, well, look, we're not doing it anymore. We are cutting out waste. In the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth said the same thing, and he defended himself on the Sunday shows yesterday.
President Trump has given another set of lawful orders, and they will be followed. If they're not followed, and all these orders are in keeping with the Constitution and norms inside the military, if they're not followed, then those officers will find the door. And that's not a tough calculation. We feel really good about the direction the Pentagon is headed under President Trump. We're going to focus on warfighting and lethality and accountability and be the most transparent Pentagon that folks have seen in a long time, which is why I explain these things on a regular basis.
And there is a lot of pushback and hubbub about all these things Elon Musk is doing. Elon Musk sent an email over the weekend. He sent it to every federal employee. And he said, from moving forward, you've got to send an email every week to your manager, and you have to give me 5 bullet points of things you've accomplished that week. And if you do not send that email with your 5 bullet points, we will assume that to be your resignation. And everybody just flipped out. They couldn't believe it. They're like, what a dictator. What a horrible person. There were Congress people calling him the worst names. And he's like, what? All he said was, tell me 5 things you did this week. As a manager, wouldn't you want to know that your employees are actually doing something? Wouldn't you want to know that your employees are actually accomplishing something? I thought it was a great idea. I work for myself. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start keeping myself accountable. At the end of the week, I'm going to write down 5 things that I've accomplished. And if I haven't accomplished 5 good things, or if I write them down and I go, those aren't really big accomplishments, then I'm going to sit down and talk to myself. And I'm going to say, look, if you want to continue working here, you've really got to shape up. You've got to start pulling your weight. And, it's a great system to utilize, especially if you run something as large as the government. Now, Elon Musk said, look, people are looking at this one way. It's not because we want to fire you. It's not because we want you to resign. But he said, first of all, there are people out there, get this, there are people out there in the federal government who will never even read this email because they don't read their email. Elon Musk wrote that there are federal employees who do not check their email. And this is a way to ferret those people out. If you're not checking your email, then you're not doing your job. You're definitely not working. If you're not checking your email, you're probably one of those federal employees that works from home, maybe has a second job, maybe doesn't work at all. I mean, I've checked my email 3 times during this broadcast. I don't know how you don't check your email. I have little email notifications that pop up in the corner of my screen. It's very distracting. But again, at the same time, you never know when you're going to need to answer an important email. These people aren't checking their email, and they're on the federal payroll. And Elon Musk goes, you know what a good way to figure out if these people are working or not is? Let's send them an email saying you have to send me 5 bullet points of things you did, or else we'll take that as a resignation. And if they don't get back to me by Monday, I know that they're not even doing any work. So I don't want them working there anyway. Another thing that people realize or don't realize or didn't until Elon Musk pointed it out is by asking people to tell you 5 things that they've done over the week, not only are you rooting out the low achievers, but you're also highlighting or finding high achievers. And if you highlight and find high achievers, you can promote them, you can give them added duties, you can put them in important positions, and you could eventually have a fantastically operating workforce of common sense people with high skills doing the job of the federal government and getting rid of all of the people who aren't even working at all. It's multifaceted, but of course, as soon as Elon Musk hit send on that, everybody in the media was just they were just flipping out, freaking out, kind of like the same way they did when Donald Trump talked about Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine. Today marks, by the way, the 3-year anniversary since the Ukraine war started. And everyone's like, oh, it's been 3 years since the war in Ukraine, 3 years since Putin invaded, 3 years. Let's celebrate Vladimir Zelensky. I'm like, let's celebrate this war by ending it. How about that? I don't know. There's not one person that said 3 years of a war seems like about 3 years too long. Everyone else is saying, let's mark the anniversary of this auspicious occasion when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine and Vladimir Zelensky became the hero that he now is. Let's celebrate 3 years of billions and billions of dollars of expenditures with no end in sight. Well, with no end in sight, that may not be the truth anymore, because apparently, according to some of the conversations that we've seen with people like Secretary Scott Bessent from the Treasury Department, and Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, apparently it appears that Ukraine may be coming around to our end of the coming around to see things our way, and realizing that these mineral deposits are a small price to pay for not dying.
The president came into office, and lo and behold, what did he find out? That we are the majority share of the aid to Ukraine, so we're funding it, and we were funding it with no arrangement to pay it back. Alternatively, the Europeans, who were most affected by this war, were funding the minority share, and they had agreements to pay it back. So, as is typical of the president, he's very, very sensible. He said to himself, that makes no sense to me. Why would the American public, taxpayers here, be funding the majority share, not get anything back? The Europeans funding the minority share, they get everything back. So this agreement is much about repayment for all that we have done on behalf of the Ukrainian people. And that's the way the president sees it. I expect to see a deal signed this week. You saw President Zelensky waver in his commitment towards that a week ago. The president sent a message to him. He's not wavering anymore. I think there's a reason he's not wavering. It's because he realizes that we have done so much, and that agreement belongs being signed. And I think you'll see it signed this week.
Even Jake Tapper can't argue with that kind of common sense logic. We're paying the most for Ukraine, and we're not getting any of it back. There's no loan documentation. There's no repayment agreement. We're funneling money to Ukraine, and we're not even there. Donald Trump always says we're not even there. Europe is right there. There's so many European countries that border Russia, Poland, all these other countries. They're the ones that are most affected by the war in Ukraine. They're the ones that are getting all of these refugees. They're the ones that have to worry about Vladimir Putin and his endeavors. But they're not even paying. And the little bit of money they are paying, they're going to get back. They were smart enough to say, we will loan you the money. Joe Biden's like, yeah, I'll give you whatever you want. I'm sure there were reasons. I'm sure you can figure that out. But Donald Trump said, we're not doing that anymore. So you've got all these mineral deposits. Great. We're going to sign a document. You're going to give us exclusive rights to this percentage of your minerals, and we will protect you. We will maintain your security. Why? Well, because we'll be partners. And that's the way it's going to be, or else you're going to get nothing. So Vladimir Zelensky, who has very little time to wait. I mean, this guy burns through money like you wouldn't even believe. This guy burns through money so fast, he doesn't even know where half the money is. That's how fast he spent it. He got billions of dollars from the United States of America, and when he was asked for an accounting of that money, he's like, I think I know where half of it is. My wife bought a very expensive car with half of it. We go shopping all the time. My friends go to Spain and buy Ferraris. I mean, though the money has been squandered. You want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. The money that was sent to Ukraine for war fighting didn't end up that way. And a lot of the money has come back and ended up in Democrats' war chests so that they can continue to win their campaigns and return to Washington, D.C. and wield their power so they can make more money. That's what it's all about. And Vladimir Zelensky has no bargaining chip. He has no leverage He wants to be a part of NATO. That's not going to happen. Our buddy Mike Waltz was on with Fox News saying, yeah, NATO's not on. That's off the table.
That is not back on the table. I do not see the United States having Ukraine enter into NATO and then having United States troops essentially obligated immediately in terms of Article 5 or coming to have U.S. troops coming directly in for the defense of Ukraine. That is very different. I want to be clear on that. We have President Macron coming. We have Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom coming. That's very different than the U.S. commitment to NATO and existing NATO countries. We are absolutely committed to NATO writ large. Our Article 5 treaty agreements with other NATO countries, but the security guarantees for Ukraine is a different conversation.
NATO will not be accepting Ukraine. Why? Well, it doesn't make any sense from our standpoint. If we want to end the war, we can't allow them to be part of NATO because as part of NATO, as he said, we would immediately need to send troops to protect Ukraine. And that's not in our best interest. That's not in our interest at all. We want to end the war. We want to make a deal where we invest in Ukraine and they have our protection from that point on. But this whole NATO thing is a pipe dream, and someone's got, Zelensky got sold on this idea by somebody, and he's got to realize that's not happening. Even Scott Bessent said, look, I went over there and I talked about it and I talked to these people, and here's what we decided.
I traveled to Kyiv about 10 days ago and met with President Zelensky, and this deal is part of President Trump's long arc negotiating strategy for peace between Ukraine and Russia, and to let the Ukrainians get back to a peaceful existence. So the first part of this is a partnership between Ukraine and the U.S. that involves strategic minerals, energy, and state-owned enterprises, where we set up a partnership and we are only looking forward. It is a win-win. President Trump created this idea himself. It is a win-win. We make money if the Ukrainian people make money, and I believe that with the United States of America, our know-how, our businesses willing to come in and provide capital, that we can accelerate the Ukrainian growth trajectory and take in substantial monies for the U.S. taxpayers and get the Ukrainian economy on a great growth trajectory.
I mean, it only makes sense. Everybody's making money. Ukraine's making money. We're making money. We know Vladimir Zelensky loves money, so this seems like a win-win for him, and no one has to die anymore. I mean, wouldn't it be better if they were able to get money from the United States and from their natural resources without people dying? Business is much more lucrative than war. The business of war is lucrative for some, but not for all. I mean, Donald Trump's all about investment everywhere. He knows that investment is the key to peace. He knows that if you have people investing millions and millions of dollars in a place, they're going to protect it. Just look at Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. That place has billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of investment, and it is well protected. Why? Because nobody wants their investment to be blown up by terrorists. So they do everything they can to make sure that that doesn't happen, and it's one of the safest and most lucrative places in the entire world. Donald Trump wants to do the same thing in Ukraine. He wants to do the same thing in Gaza. He wants to do the same thing wherever there's any kind of turmoil. By investing money in a place, you make it bigger and stronger and richer and safer. And Donald Trump knows that. Speaking of investment, look at this. This just came down this morning before the show. Apple, which has been funneling money out to China forever, Apple announced that they are, get this, bringing jobs back home to the United States of America. Now, I want you to think about the timing of this. Donald Trump says, I'm raising tariffs on China. I'm raising tariffs on China. Anything coming in from China is going to be tariffed. Tariff is my fourth favorite word, says Donald Trump. And so China will get tariffed. There's going to be reciprocal tariffs on every single country. Anything they charge a tariff on, we're going to charge a tariff on. And as soon as that happened, Apple, who does the majority of their manufacturing in China, all of a sudden Apple's like, you know what? We're going to bring some of that money back home.
This Apple announcement this morning, which just popped 6 a.m. Eastern, all the details are up, the lead story on Axios. This is a landmark story for a couple of reasons. One, the effort by the president to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., this is a massive commitment to that. And as we say in our story, this gives Trump the leverage to say to other companies, Apple can do this. Apple is bringing these jobs into the U.S. Apple is investing in the U.S. Why can't you? Why won't you? And the statement out this morning from Apple CEO Tim Cook, talking about being bullish on the future of America, talking about writing an extraordinary new chapter in the history of American innovation. So that's one bucket. Two, there's an incredible footprint for this. This is all across the United States, and it's part of the big story that Axios has been telling, that it's no longer just the coast. Look at where some of these big investments are. The swing states of Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, red states, the massive investment that you were talking about in Texas, a big innovation lab in Michigan. So a footprint all across the country. And third, if you look at how the U.S. is going to have a sustained recovery, it's going to be about building things, making things, doing that more in the U.S. This is a big step toward that.
Big step toward that. Apple bringing $500 billion. I mean, it's amazing how Donald Trump says tariffs, everybody freaks out. But as soon as the tariffs are there, guess what? Companies come home, they bring their money with them. They're going to start manufacturing things here in the United States of America. They're going to start building things here in the United States of America. China will lose this war because, look, it's not just that they have Apple money and all this other money from all these other countries. It's that they're selling stuff here. And they sell way more to us than we sell to them. So at the end of the day, Donald Trump understands how these tariffs are going to work. And all of a sudden, we're starting to reap the rewards and see the benefits. And Apple itself is saying we are bullish, meaning positive, on American investments moving forward. Why? Because President Donald Trump is, well, President Donald Trump. Listen, like I said, the news breaks fast around here. There's so much news all the time, and we don't want you to miss any of it. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you set the notifications. Make sure that you are checking back all the time. And if you're listening to the podcast, tell Spotify, tell iTunes, I love this podcast. I want more of this podcast. And don't forget to leave us a review, because tomorrow is Tuesday. And Tuesdays are reviews days. And we're going to read some of the reviews. We're going to share some of the things that you wrote. So head on over to iTunes, write a review quickly. Let us know what you really think about the show. Hopefully it's positive. If it's not, maybe just keep it to yourself. And once we go live tomorrow, we'll be reading some of those. And eventually we're going to start sending out stuff to some of the top reviewers. So we would love you to take the opportunity to go do that, so that we'll have them all ready for tomorrow. Otherwise, wherever you happen to be, YouTube or X, or, well, not Rumble today because Dan Bongino broke it. Hopefully they'll be back up and running for tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us, and thank yourself for joining us, because by you joining us, you've hopefully got a little bit of information and inspiration. You're hopefully clear on how great this country is and how the fake news media is lying to you, that all these people that are saying, oh, people don't like what Donald Trump's doing, people don't like Doge, people don't like saving money, people don't like deporting illegal aliens, they're all lying. The majority of the United States of America and the people that live here, Democrats and Republicans, are all in favor of what Donald Trump is doing, and they are all against the lies that the fake news media are telling you.
The poop toilet is full.
For example. Congratulations once again to Dan Bongino. Like I said, like, subscribe, and share so that you will continue to get more information every single day when we bring it to you, so that we can continue to come together and help sharpen each other's weapons and keep each other strong and ready to fight, so that we can all save the Republic. There will be no after party today because, well, that's all part of Rumble as well. So maybe tomorrow.